my focus is for more trauma people, but I do this for everybody. Anybody needs healing. Everybody needs healing. If you live on planet Earth, everybody needs healing. And so it doesn't have to be because you had some trauma. That's just where I focus if those people need it. That's my specialty, I will say, is with people that have gone through trauma because I'm not afraid of it. It doesn't, your story's not going to trigger me. And if it does, I'll go to Jesus too. And I'll go and do my own healing. And that's important if you're in this industry, is to have your own healing. You need to continually doing your own healing work because you are carrying a lot for people, and then you just give it to Jesus. You don't have to carry the burden alone.
Do you ever wonder where God is at when life is flipped upside down? I'm Sherry, your host, and I created this podcast so that my guests and I could look at the good God we profess through the lens of pain and suffering. What I have learned both firsthand and through the personal stories of my guests is that the God of the Holy Bible speaks beautiful things in the dark. God invites us to give him our pain because he's the only one who can transform the very thing that was meant to destroy us. Our challenge is to trust him in the process so that we might come to understand who he really is versus who we think he should be. Listen in and discover the countless ways in which we can find God in our pain. I had the absolute pleasure of speaking with Taleah Pletzer, a trauma-informed coach and healing prayer facilitator. She shared her personal journey through a turbulent childhood and the profound impact that trauma had on her life. And through her story, she illustrates the powerful message that healing is possible no matter the depths of past traumas. And I don't know about you, but that's the kind of message I love to hear, a message about hope and a better tomorrow. Taleah's childhood was marked by chaos and abandonment, leading to countless challenges, including issues of attachment and self-worth. She candidly spoke about her experiences with sexual abuse, the rejection of her family, and the struggles that she faced growing up in a household filled with addiction and darkness. And despite these challenges, Taleah found hope and healing through her relationship with God. And one of the key themes of our discussion was the role of faith in Taleah's healing journey. She described moments of divine intervention that saved her life, literally, and provided comfort during her darkest times. And while Taleah did not have a relationship with God during the abuse, she now emphasizes the importance of building an intimate relationship with God because she believes it is crucial for true healing and transformation. As a trauma-informed coach, Taleah uses the Emmanuel Approach, a method that combines brain science and biblical principles. And this approach helps individuals connect with Jesus in a tangible way, allowing them to explore their emotions and experiences in a safe and supportive environment. Taleah highlighted the significance of starting healing sessions with positive memories to activate relational circuits in the brain, facilitating a deeper connection with God and with oneself, which played a significant role in her recovery. And her story serves as a testament to the transformative power of faith and perseverance. Taleah Pletzer's story is powerful, so much so I titled this podcast after her own words, Healing is a Journey and You're Worth the Trip. Her message to those who feel trapped by their past is clear. You are not alone, and there is hope for a brighter future. By embracing the healing power of faith and seeking support from compassionate guides like Taleah, anyone can find the strength to overcome their trauma and live the life God intended for you to experience, one of wholeness and freedom. Before we get started, Taleah gives a warning about her testimony because it may create a trigger for some people, as it does include the topic of self-harm. If that is something that you're sensitive to, you will want to listen out for the point in our conversation where you hear Taleah's voice crack. She pauses and she says, "Sorry, this is a little bit hard for me." And this is where you will want to pause and either pray to prepare yourself to enter into the topic with Taleah or come back at a later time when you've had time to process your own feelings. So whether you're in trauma A, B, or you simply feel stuck in your own head or your own heart, Taleah is waiting to help and the healing power of Jesus is waiting to transform. So let's listen in. Taleah, it is so good to have you here today. Thank you for agreeing to this podcast because digging around in someone's trauma is probably never something you become fond of. And I think you endure, we endure, because there's a bigger purpose. So I push into this territory with you today because I want your message to be heard in all the places that God will take this podcast. Along with your personal journey through trauma, we'll be discussing the different ways that you come alongside women and help them heal from their past trauma. So welcome to the show today.
Thank you, Sherry. It's an honor to be here.
You are a trauma-informed coach and a healing prayer facilitator, and we're going to break that down so that we can understand what that means and the benefits of this type of trauma healing therapy. But first, I want to start with a little glimpse of your childhood because it drives home the fact that God uses everything we go through, that our most devastating seasons have purpose and meaning. God wastes nothing. And the fact that the evil of this life is the very thing that God uses to show us his nature and his character in the midst of our pain. And it's the very thing that helps us fulfill the calling that he has placed on our life. Can you tell us a little bit about your childhood so that we can better understand why you are passionately passionate about helping women find their healing and wholeness?
Thank you, Sherry. I love to share. Before I share, though, I would like to tell any of my family listening out there that this is my story. This is how God used what happened in my life. And I know you were part of it, but I don't hold any grudges, no bad vibes, no with my family. You were in a different place. I was in a different place at that point. I'm sure we've both grown and moved on. I know I've healed. Hopefully you have. And also, before I start my story, I just wanted to tell the listeners out there my story can be triggering. It is trauma B, which I'll explain later what that means. And so if you feel triggered or if you go, oh, that's a little close to home for me, please stop the podcast. I will not take offense. Sherry will not be offended. We won't even know for that matter. It'll just be you that knows you stopped it. So stop it, pause it, come back when you're feeling more in tune, like you can handle it. I do not want my story to injure or trigger anybody. So that being said, are you ready to go, Sherry?
I'm ready to go.
All right. So my story is pretty turbulent. When I was about a year and a half, my biological mom, for whatever reason, decided that she couldn't be a mom. She'd had her own personal issues. That's not my story. I'm not going there. That's hers. All I know is I was left in a crib in Okinawa, Japan, while my dad was in the military. We were on the base, and I was left there for probably hours. So I was pretty dirty and yucky. And as you can say, sense screaming and crying. And so my aunt and uncle found me. They had planned on coming to visit, apparently, from the story I was told. And so that happened. So I never really knew my mom, my bio mom. I had seen her a couple times in my life early until about the age of 10, and that was it. So I didn't really have a great relationship with her. My grandparents raised me for a couple of years after my dad was in the military so he could finish his tour. Then he came back to the States, was raising me, and then he met another woman and she became my mom. I knew her in my life. She was in my life for 10 years. And through that time, there was just so much chaos and turbulence. And she was an alcoholic, and my dad did drugs, and he sold drugs in our house. And so the curtains, everything was dark. It was very dark in my house, very dismal, because he was, kind of paranoid. He didn't want people knowing what he was doing. And not only that, to top it all off, he was sexually molesting me from the time I was pretty young, early childhood, up until late teens. And so that was really, really hard. I felt alone. He would tell me like, oh, this is just what we do. This is how I love you. This is how we tell each other we love each other. This is how we show love. I can remember thinking, wait, like, why does everybody think this is wrong then? Wait a minute. Like, I just didn't get it. I really honestly thought, because I was so sheltered. Your listeners might find this really hard to believe, but I was so sheltered. And now I know that that was God. Like, he just protected my heart, my mind, my spirit. Like, there were things going on in my house that I would see it, but I didn't put it together. I didn't. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, this is going on. This is just what he does. I didn't even know what they were. I didn't care. Like, they'd be in the kitchen cutting, doing whatever. And I would just be like, okay, in my own little bubble, my own little world. And so they got divorced, my dad, for different reasons, cheating on her and stuff, and, just turbulent. It just didn't work. And so she left, and then she decided she couldn't have anything else to do with me either, because I was too much like my dad, and I talked about my dad. And, where she was at, she just couldn't handle it. So there went another mom out of my life. So there's two moms. So I had serious abandonment and rejection issues, very much so. I would cling to anybody, any women figure, I'd be like, oh, and I'd go to them and run to them because I needed a mom. And so, as luck would have it, not luck, but God, he knew what he was doing. When I was 16, I had another stepmom. I'd had for a couple of years. My dad divorced, got remarried, had two step siblings come into the picture. And that stepmom really didn't care for me. She didn't like me. In my view, everything I did was wrong. Nothing I did was right, no matter how hard I tried. In my mind, as a 16-year-old teenager, your hormones are all over the place. So I just kind of struggled a lot. And so one day my dad just said, I can reach out through the attorneys and get to know your mom, your bio mom, Lorraine. So he just told me, let's get in touch with her if you want to. You're old enough. And I said, wait a minute. She hasn't mailed me letters, birthday cards, like nothing in years. I don't even know this. Like, why do I want to do that? That was my first reaction when he said, do you want to get a hold of her? And I was like, no, not really. Why? And he said, well, you're old enough to make your own decisions and she's getting older and you have a brother. It's up to you. Why don't you we could try it and then you just see. And I thought, okay, I can do that. So we found her. She called me. So we connected. We talked back and forth. We wrote letters, old school letters in the mail. Yes, we did. And it was wonderful. I still have them. And so I developed this relationship with her. I started developing a relationship. Well, then things at my house were getting really bad with the abuse, with just all the turbulence. My new stepmom just really felt like she did not want me there. I'd wake up at 2, 3, 4 in the morning with them fighting about me, screaming about me. And it was just awful for a 15, 16-year-old. And I thought in my mind, I was the problem. So I thought, well, maybe if I go live with my bio mom, Lorraine, that will help and they won't fight anymore. So, we had kind of talked about it, her and I, and she was like, I'd love for you to come live with me. I just don't think your dad will let you. So long story short, he did. I moved in with her to California and it was like I jumped out of the frying pan into the fire.
Oh no.
Because here I am with this stepdad that I don't know. Like I've only seen him twice. I don't really know him. He does drugs too. He's in a motorcycle gang. So I was raised very, very, very strict. You did not go anywhere. You didn't do anything without permission when I grew up with my dad. It was totally the opposite with my new mom, my bio mom. She's like, oh, go wherever you want. I don't care. Don't tell me where you're going. And I didn't know what to do. So we had these turbulent times. My stepdad accused me of stealing. I was devastated. My mom's like, don't worry about it. I know you didn't steal from me. Because that's not who I am. And I was like, oh my gosh, she thinks I'm a thief. And so, here I am trying to fit in this other family that I don't fit into, or I feel like I don't. So then, sorry, this is a little bit hard for me.
Okay. Okay. This is the third household where you've been rejected, misunderstood, and abandoned. I can relate to those things, but I know that it hits us as individual people of who we are, and it sets you up for just making decisions that are not beneficial to you. One of the things I walked away from my household with was that I had more survival skills than I had relationship skills. So at this point, now your stepfather believes you're a liar and a thief and causing problems between in their marriage. Now what happens to a young girl at 16, 17 years old?
I was late 16, almost 17, I believe. And so I started hearing this voice saying, nobody wants you. You can't get along anywhere you go. You're the problem. It's you. Everywhere you go, there's chaos. And I took all that shame and that guilt on. And so growing up, I kind of was allowed to go to church at my dad's house here and there, but I only had little glimpses of God and of this God that I didn't really know, but I thought, well, maybe he's real. And that the voice comes in and the voice has kept like reassuring me. And at first, this voice was very gentle, like very nice, very calming, very convincing. Like, oh, you don't really fit anywhere. I have the solution. And I started listening to that voice. And so one day I was all alone at the house and the voice was like, you should just take some pills and go to sleep. And nobody's going to miss you.
Mm.
You can't get along over at your dad's. with your new stepmom. You've never had a mom that loved you. This is your third one, like, woman in your life. And this is the woman that gave you up. She didn't want you either. And she still doesn't want you. So I was like, oh. So I agreed with that voice and I thought, yeah, it made sense. I mean, I know looking back, it seems crazy and it sounds crazy, but to a 16-year-old girl, I was so desperate to be out of pain and to be loved. And this voice was so convincing. This voice was like, you're just going to be better. And I was like, oh, I just want relief. I just wanted relief.
Right.
So I wrote a note, and my stepdad was on all kinds of pills for I don't even know what for. And so I just grabbed all these different pills from these different bottles. And this voice was like, you're going to feel so much better. No one's going to miss you. I was like, wow, no one's going to miss me. And the more and more I thought about it, the more I agreed with the voice just because of where I had been and where I had walked and all the pain and all the struggles I had been through. So I took a cup of water. I had the note on the table, took just a handful of pills, and I heard this voice, and it really pretty loud. And it just said, stop. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought somebody was in the house. I thought somebody came home. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in trouble. And so I put the pills away and I put the note in the trash and I just kind of put the water down the sink. I ran around the house looking, Sherry, and nobody was home. Nobody was there. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's the weirdest thing. So then I heard the voice again. And this time the voice wasn't so nice. This time the voice was like in a hurry. It was the weirdest thing. This time the voice was like, come on, hurry up. They're going to be home. Hurry up. Nobody wants you. They're not going to miss you. I mean, it was like he was desperate. His voice was no longer nice and gentle and convincing. Now his voice was like, no, hurry up. Just do it. Just finish this, go in your bedroom, go to sleep, and you'll be done. Like, it'll be over. Nobody's going to miss you. All the same old things in my head. And I agreed with it. And it was like, come on. It was like an agenda now. Like, come on, you got to do this. And so then I was like, okay, all right. So I take the cup, I get the note out of trash, unwrinkle it, put it on the counter, get the cup again, get the pills again. I take the water, and suddenly I heard the voice again. Only this time it sounded like thunder. I heard this voice and it said, I said, stop. And I immediately looked up. So I just looked around, I put the pills down, and I just looked around the house and I just stood there. And I just thought, maybe someone doesn't want me to do this today.
Right.
I just thought today, like, okay, maybe this God I heard about, I don't really know him, but I've heard about him. Maybe he doesn't want me to do this today. So I tore the note up. I threw it in the bottom of the trash. Nobody would find it. I put the pills back. I tried to put them where they went by the color, but I didn't really know. And I dumped the water. And then the voice was so angry. The voice was like, you have to do this now. No, don't listen to that. Like, you got to do it right now. Don't you see? Nobody wants you. You're not wanted. You're nothing. And then I was like, well, no, there's this other voice though. And I was arguing with this voice, with the other bad voice. And he's like, nobody's going to miss you. Look, you have chaos everywhere you go. And he reminded me, like, you couldn't get along at your dad's because your new stepmom, she didn't want nothing to do with you. This person didn't want anything to do with you. Just do it. And I was like, no, but that voice was loud. And I'm arguing like, no, wait, that voice was really, really loud. Like, he didn't want me to do it. So I think I'm just going to wait. I don't think I'm going to do this today. And the voice was so angry. I remember him being so, so angry. And I just tried my best to like push it out of my head, but God saved me. It was God. He totally saved me that day. Literally.
Yeah. Yeah, literally. And that's probably the closest example I've heard to someone having that devil and that angel on their shoulder, the devil and God on opposing shoulders, and then having this dialogue with them. But I'm so glad that you responded to the one that had the more powerful resounding, although it is completely understandable that you responded to the one that wanted you to take your own hand to yourself because it lined up with everything you'd experienced. It made sense to you because of what your life experiences were. It's not like you had to grasp for anything to try and believe what he was pitching to you. So that's scary. But then God intervenes. At what point did you step into a more intimate, a more personal relationship with God? Because God can do supernatural things, take the desire for alcohol away from people, drugs away from people. But my experience is that he's been very gentle and he heals in layers. And so it's a process.
Hmm.
Is that what it was like for you
Oh
to
yeah.
step into a
Mhm.
fullness with God, an intimacy with God?
I went to church for a little bit and then I did give my life to him when I was 16 through that because of that experience. But then where in the word it says the thorns and the thistles and the all the weeds and stuff, well, that was me. So I had no foundation. I didn't really have, so I did walk away for quite a while. And then through my first divorce, my only one, thank you, Lord,
Yeah.
I found Jesus again. My friend was like, "Oh, you should come to church with me." And I honestly was like, "I can't go to church. I'm getting divorced. Are you kidding me? Like lightning will literally I thought this. I mean, it sounds corny, but I literally was like, I can't walk into that church. Lightning's going to strike me. Don't you know? I got to get cleaned up. I am messy. I'm getting divorced. I got this and this and that. My life's a train wreck." And she goes, "No, no, no. That's when you need to go to church." And I
Right.
went, "Really? Like, really?" And she just was so like loving on me. And she's like, "Just come with me once and then see, you'll see." And I was like, well, what have I got to lose? I had had a daughter. I only got married because we had a daughter. And I thought it would make him and his mom, my ex mother in law, like me more. I thought in my head, oh, they'll love me more. I won't just be the baby mama, the mom baby, whatever. I will, be the wife. And so he'll treat me better. And he did not, culturally and stuff. It was a culture thing. He thought he owned me. And so a lot of things happened during that time. And I finally was like, I can't do this anymore. I have a daughter to think about. And I need to think of her future. Now I'm responsible for another human being and I'm not leaving her. No, I'm going to protect her because in my mind, nobody protected me. So I was like, nope. And so I went to church and she was right. Immediately, I thought that the pastor kept talking to me. I thought this light was shining on me. Like, wow, he knows my story. He's talking to me. And so I gave my life again to the Lord. I went down to the altar, gave my life to him, and it completely changed my life. It was really slow. Like it wasn't a fast process. I was on fire for God, I will say, right away, sharing. Oh my gosh, I was so excited. But then I hit a little speed bump. The enemy came back and that little voice, and I was starting to read the word, and I was in Bible studies. Well, I came across the word that talked about incest. And I was reading all that and I was like, oh man, oh no. And I had still at this point hadn't really dealt with what my dad had done to me. I took it on as we did it. Like I still took it on the shame, the guilt that I had done this all those
Mm.
years. So I was at that point. And so I was reading the word and came across that and I thought, oh, wait a minute, God can't love me. And then that voice came back, that
Mm.
evil, bad voice. Oh, yeah, see, he doesn't love you. There's no way. You're gross. You're filthy. You're disgusting. You slept with your father. How could you? You are gross. This God is never going to accept you, ever.
Mm.
You'll never be good enough. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I kind of ran. In trauma, we have trauma responses. There's fight, flight, fawn, and flee. Mine was flee. So I fled. I ran a little bit. I was like, okay, I agreed with the voice again, the bad one, because he aligned with my life experience. He aligned with what I'd been told, just like you said, for my entire life. He aligned with that. He took a little bit of truth and he powered it with lies. But it aligned with everything I had been through and everything I thought about myself. So then I was like, I kind of got angry with God, and I want people to know that that's okay. He's not afraid of your anger. He
Yeah.
is totally not afraid of any emotion you have. I know in a lot of Christian circles we're taught, no, you can't be this, you gotta be reverent and pray and be like this when you pray and da 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 da. No, like I was not, because nobody taught me that. I didn't know this. So I was just being real, being me. So I was like, okay. I just sat down one day in my room and I was like, all right, okay, God. And I just looked up, okay, God, if you're God and you're real, then I need to know, do you love me? Am I disgusting? I just asked him all these questions. Am I gross? Am I this? Am I that? Am I everything this voice is telling me I am? Who am I? And are you real? Can I trust you? Are you really who you say you are? And am I this way gross in your mind? Am I disgusting to you? Because if I am, I'm out. I'm out of here. I don't think I can be Christian. Like, I don't think I can do this. I'm not clean. I'm not this. So the most beautiful thing happened. when the abuse sexually was going on with my dad, I would actually do something called disassociation. It's when you leave your body and you're not there. So when I would do that, I would literally leave my body and I would look down and I would see the action going on down there, but I wouldn't be there. I was just up above it. When I would do that, when I was younger, this man would be there. And I remember never being afraid of this man. I didn't know who he was, but he knew me. And he was bright and beautiful and had this white flowy outfit gown type thing on. And he would go and he'd take his hand very gently and he'd go, "Come on, you want to come with me? Let's get you away from this." And I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, sounds good." So he would, I would be gone. I'd be up and we would go to the most beautiful garden. Like I can imagine it being like the Garden of Eden. So I would go up and it would be beautiful. And we'd play and we'd run through these fields of grass and most beautiful flowers and this huge oak tree. We'd go sit by the oak tree and just talk the entire time this bad stuff was going on down below on earth. So when I was praying to God and asking him, he showed me that. And he said, that was me.
Mm.
That was me with you through that horrible, horrible time. And he was like, and I grieved with you. And I was there with you. And I hated what was going on. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. So you were there, watched him hurt me and abuse me, and you didn't stop it? So then it led to a whole nother part questions like, why didn't you stop him from hurting me? How come you didn't intervene? Why did you let him do this to me all these years, all those years? And he was like, because I will not interfere with free will. But I took you up and out and I saved you.
Mm.
And the purpose was so that I could help others. He told me that way back then. He's like, your testimony is going to help a lot of people. And I was like, what do you mean? I didn't really understand it then.
Right. But you're walking it out today.
Yeah.
I have heard, and even the Lord gave me a vision when I asked him, "Where were you?" in a moment that still bugged me and antagonized me about abandonment in my life. And God gave me a vision of where he was. I've talked to other people. I've heard Victor Marks share his testimony when he was being sexually abused by his father and being beaten and just left for dead. He was left for dead 2 or 3 times. But he would see, hey, God, he asked God where he was, and when his father would come into the room, God would lay across him. He showed him that he laid over him, and he took the beating. He took
Mm.
the evil stuff, and so now here, Victor Marks is walking in victory, walking in a testimony, transforming lives left and right. So I love this beautiful
Mm.
moment. And I know that people can experience this with you when they do the healing ministry where you invite us to ask God, where were you? And if we accept your invitation
Mhm.
to ask God that question, he will show you where he was. And I have learned that he's not
Mhm.
there because he approves what's going on. He's there because he told you he would never
Mm.
leave you nor forsake you. And so he's there as an
Amen.
intercessor and to protect you, which he can clearly in every situation, in my situation, Mark's, yours, and I've heard a couple of other people share where God was in these crucial moments of trauma, and that he does have something to say about it. He does protect, he is present. And that to know that you're not alone has got to be one of the most powerful things that we can know and experience. What do you want to tell a young girl right now who believes that what she's done or not done, because that guilt was put on you, that's not a choice that a child makes. So whether it was by her own hand or by the hand of others, and she feels like she's gone too far, she's done too much, God is not going to put up with this. What is a message you?
You can never go too far. God says in his word, he will never leave you nor forsake you. He never moves. We are the ones that move away from God when we think our sin is too great for him. He doesn't want you to stay where you're at. He saved me in the midst of a trying 16-year-old that had done a lot of wrong. He reached down and grabbed me and literally saved my life. He wants to save yours too. And he wants you to stop believing the lies. He doesn't want you to believe those lies anymore. They're lies. The lies you've been told, the guilt, the shame, it's not yours. It's not yours to carry. His burden is light and his yoke is easy, is what his word says. We take on burdens onto ourselves, and that's how we're trained. We're modeled that way. That's when you go through trauma. it's modeled to you that way, to take it on. There's people pleasing, there's attachment wounds, there's so much stuff that goes along with trauma. It doesn't fit in this little tiny box. And as Christians, I think a lot of, not all of them, mind you, but a lot of Christian sectors teach like not to view your emotions, not to be who you are. Don't feel, just move on. Just keep, that's called spiritual bypassing. So I just want to tell your listeners, no, that's what I did for years upon years. And it messed up my relationships with my daughters. I did not do it right. Because I was so wounded. My heart and my passion now is to help young women. I help any women, but my view is younger women, 20s, 30s, 40s, because I don't want them walking through trying to raise their family and carrying all this stuff. Your trauma is going to spill out into these relationships. I know because I walked it. It happened with me and my kids. I did a lot of things I'm not proud of. I said a lot of things to them. I didn't attach well to them because I did not know that that was a thing. And so if you don't attach well to your family, whoever that is, like your dad, your mom, your grandparents, whoever your core family member that's raising you is when you're little, it's called attachment wounds. I encourage your listeners to go look it up. It is a real thing. I never ever knew until 3 years ago. My counselor was like, "Oh, I think you have attachment wounds," and I went, What is that? Like, what?" And so when you don't develop healthy attachments to those people that you're supposed to, you get wounded. So there's anxiety, there's depression, there's lack, there's people pleasing was one of mine, impulsiveness, trusting people too easily. Those are all stem from attachment wounds.
I know I had disassociation and attachment wounds as well because my mother could not care well for us. We didn't know it at the time, but was bipolar and had a second personality. When we were being raised in the house, we didn't know what her problem was. We just couldn't figure it out. And
Hmm.
so that's a real thing, that disassociation, that lack of attachment, and that does impact everything in the years to come. So I love that you're getting to these women at a younger age to dismantle this lie-based thinking and equip them with truth. Because the fact of the matter is, people stab you in the back, people cheat on you, people lie. So there's that we have to deal with. However, if you can deal with it from a healed perspective, it's much more conducive to peace and joy. And you just get to process that if it happens again. But yet, if you don't, now you've got this whole ball of a hot mess of stuff that you didn't heal from. So there is
Hmm.
such a benefit to dismantling all of this trauma and get to process the one issue, not all the issues at one time. Can you think of an example of how God rewrote your trauma and replaced it with his truth? Is there like a moment or a switch or something that solidified for you where you stepped into this new level of freedom because God's word sets us free? The truth sets us free.
Yes and no. I don't think there was a moment. There were many moments for me where throughout my life raising my kids is that God would just show up and he would minister to me. So I have a slogan. I say, healing is a journey and you're worth the trip. It's on my business cards. It's going to be part of my logo. Like it just really resonates. A lot of people are like, okay, I need healing. I just want to do it now. No, no. I'm like, that's not how it works because we have all these different parts of us. Everybody does. We all have different parts that play a role, survival part, a protective part, or this part. And they don't want to come out. They're used to being hidden. They are used to being down low and they help you and they're used to taking control and they're not ready to come out and play right away. It takes time to get they're called relational circuits. So our relational circuits are things on our brain, a little brain science, where you can tell if they're on or off by how you're responding. So relational is what it sounds like, relationships. So when your relationship circuits are on, you're not judgmental, you're caring, you're thinking about the relationship with the person that you're talking with. Whoever it's more about the relationship with that person than it is about being right, let's say. Or if they're off, then you're judging, you're giving advice, you're telling them what to do. You can be argumentative and just really frustrated. And then oh, my RCs are off. So relational circuits have a lot to do with healing. and they help us when they're on. Our brains are ready for healing. And so it's really a slow process. So back to your question, I know that was a little loop, but the relational circuits being on are really important when you start your healing. God brought a lady from our church and she did some prayer healing with me. And we had this little book and it was amazing. And I was like, wow. And I had to forgive a lot of people in my life. Well, I thought my dad, from kind of what he did, was going to be the hardest to forgive. And surprisingly, no, he was not. I was like, whoa, I had to forgive other people in my life that I was like, wait, what? Why do I need to forgive him? And then the Lord would slowly just say, because this and this. And I would go, oh, like you're resenting your sibling because of this, this, and this happened. And I was like, I am. And that's what God did. And then, so I'd get a little healing there. And then some things would happen in our life. And I tell my husband, I think I need to go to some counseling. I think there's something going on. I always thought, what's wrong with me? I would say, what's wrong with me? There's something wrong with me. I just felt like, what's wrong with me? There's got to be something wrong. Well, I want to tell your listeners that there's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. You just need to be loved and listened to and cared for. There's nothing wrong with you. You just have not been able to talk and you haven't been listened to and you haven't been able to find healing in your heart. And it's my job now. I want to come alongside you. I want to listen to you. I'm not afraid of the messes that you think you have. I'm not afraid to hear the yucky stuff. I'm not afraid to hear whatever it is. Like, God can handle it. I can handle it. You're not going to shock me, and you're definitely not going to shock God. So that's what he did for me. He brought in another person here for a few months, and then I'd get a little more healing, and then another person here for a few months. I'd get a little more healing. It was just a long process of little by little. Right before COVID, I was diagnosed with something called functional neurological disorder. One of the criteria to be in this focus group was that you had to have gone through sexual abuse. And at first, I didn't want to do that. I was like, no, no, I'm healed, because I thought, oh no, I've done counseling, I've done this, I'm healed. No, I'm not doing that. And my family was like, oh, I really think you need to do this. But I didn't want to be broken anymore. I felt like this little broken porcelain doll, and I was so tired of being broken. And so I did listen, and I went and I did the testing and I got into the program. And then I learned so much about thought processes and negative thinking and spiritual bypassing. So in 2020, when COVID started coming around and everything was starting to shut down, the Lord was like, oh, this is what you're going to do. You are going to get your healing. What? So I did. I met a lady out of California and we did Zoom. And this is what she used: emotional focus therapy and the Emmanuel Approach. There were parts of me that I was never allowed to show emotion. So I would start getting sad and then I would skip and I would just keep going. And she'd go, wait. Let's go back here. And I couldn't. I was like, oh no, no. We can't be sad. Like, nope. I've always been cheery and uppy and, kind of like high strung, you could say. But it's because I had to. And she's like, no. Why? Let's explore that a little bit. How come you can't be sad? So then we finally figured out that it was because I was afraid. There was a part of me that was like, no, if you even remotely be sad, you're going to stay sad and enter depression and lack and all those words that people tell you, especially in the Christian realm. Like, oh no, you just got to speak the word and you just got to keep speaking that word in your heart and mind and then it'll come. I'm telling you, no, that's spiritual bypassing. Yes, the word is great. I am not saying don't listen to the word. Please hear me, to your listeners. Just saying it over and over and over in your head and trying and thinking it's going to heal you is the left brain function. That's the left brain logic. It is not going to heal your heart. That's the difference. You have to get to Jesus.
That's been my part of my journey as well, as believing that because I'm now a believer in Jesus Christ and I'm learning the word, that I will be transformed by the word. And yes, I was transformed by the word, but there still remained a practical side of my healing that I had to engage. And I remember one time the Lord, I was kind of like you in the sense that I'm tired of being broken. I don't want to go back. I'm old enough to know you don't get people like you want them. You just have to meet them where they are. And guess what? It sucks sometimes that this happens, blah, blah, blah. And the Lord
Mm-hmm.
spoke into my spirit and he said, Sherry, I don't take you back to hurt you. I take you back to heal you. We have to go there in order to move forward. So anytime the Lord brings something up to my spirit where I'm struggling with something, I'm like, okay, I need a little more healing in this area, clearly. And then I'll go for therapy. And one of the things that I've really enjoyed is the different ministries, the healing ministries. That's why I'm excited about the one we're going to talk about here in a minute, the Emmanuel process. We are such complicated people that we hide things from our own self that we're not even aware is
Mm-hmm.
hidden. Kind of like you were saying, I didn't even
Mm-hmm.
understand that that was somebody I had to forgive, or thinking that the hardest part was going to be your father. And yet you find out that was not the hardest part. It's very interesting to me, the complication of the mind and the way we protect ourselves. And I'm doing little air quotes because we think we're protecting ourselves. We go into these postures and these positions like you were talking about: flee, freeze, fawn. We go into these postures because we don't want to deal with this stuff, because we think that's going to protect us. Well, maybe the flee if you're in immediate imminent danger, but for the most part, we create these survival skills around these emotions, and we're drug addicts, we're alcoholics, we overspend, we overeat, we these little things, some of them are even socially acceptable, so we're not really alarmed by those survival skills, the way we protect ourselves. So I think it's a beautiful process that God does take us little by little. He knows how much we can handle. He knows what we're ready to
Mm-hmm.
address. He knows what he's ready to bring forward to the front. And somebody like yourself who will lead us through this process is gold. So let's get into this, the definitions of trauma healing and facilitating. So define a trauma informed coach. What do they do?
Basically, they're trauma informed, which means for me, I have taken classes on trauma, what trauma is. There's different kinds of trauma A and trauma B. Trauma A is like a one-time, say, a car accident, a one-time instance where you got in a car accident and maybe you had to go to the hospital. That creates some trauma. And basically, our neural pathways are a cycle. So if your brain does not complete the cycle, it will stay stuck, say, over here. So maybe the hospital visit to that time in the car accident will just stay stuck. So then you'll be afraid to go to the hospital. So you won't go to the hospital. Or if you do, you'll have a panic attack at the hospital because you didn't complete the cycle to get that healing. Trauma B, on the other hand, is a more long term trauma. It's basically being in the effects of trauma for ongoing, like myself. Like I was in survival mode and had endured trauma from a very young age all the way through until very late teens, early adult. So that is called trauma B. It's an ongoing traumatic experience. So that's a little harder because those parts I talked about get stuck. They are protecting, they are doing a job. They each have a job and they're each valid. And so my job is to try to help you integrate them together so that this part doesn't feel like it's all alone over here and it can't come over here. So, like if you have an anger issue, this part, if you had to, like, I'll take what you said. If you're not perfect, all hell was going to break loose in your house. So, if you weren't perfect, you had a part, I bet, that was like, oh, I've got to be perfect, a performance part, I call it. So, oh, I have to be over here and I have to do this. So, you put this mask on. Oh, there's performance Sherry. So, you would do certain tasks or certain things around the house or get good grades. That was me. I would get good grades to try to take the focus off of the abuse. However, you did it, that was your part, was trying to go, oh, no. So, you have this part over here that integrate that'll tell you what to do, perform. I got to perform. I have to be right. I have to. So, there's a lot of pressure that comes with that. And so I help walk you through that. And the Emmanuel part of that is with Jesus. We start in a positive memory because you always want to start in a positive memory. You never want to start in pain because our right brains do not keep track of time. And so you could jump right into a memory. It can be a memory on the beach. It can be a memory with your kids, your dog, just doing a podcast and you had a great time, whatever it is. But there can be no pain attached to it. So then we walk you through, and then it's totally up to you. I am just kind of in the back seat helping facilitate, guide you. That's the heart healing part of this. Guide you, lead you. Like I don't prophesy. There's nothing scary. It's very slow. It's very gentle. It's a very slow process. The model I love to use, I use a few different ones, but the Emmanuel Approach is the model I like to use together most because it's just healing. Dr. Carl Lehman and Jim Wilder are renowned psychologists, and they developed the Emmanuel Approach. Here's his book. So 700 and some odd pages. Dr. Carl Lehman and Jim Wilder developed this program because they are renowned psychologists and family counselors. And their clients weren't progressing the way they thought. Like, man, they were just hitting these walls. And so they're like, there's got to be something. They're both science geeks, neurologists. Oh my gosh, they're amazing. They love the brain stuff. So what this does is Emmanuel combines the brain science with biblical principles and puts them together, because Emmanuel Approach, God is with us, just like in my story when I didn't even know it. I bet you if we were to interview 500 people, they would each be like, oh, I had this experience, but they don't really know it's God. Maybe they don't recognize it's the Lord, but it is. So Emmanuel kind of comes in, starts in a positive memory, and then we asked, hey, would you like to invite Jesus into this memory? If you do, great. He's gentle. He's not going to push his way in. If you don't, we could just stay in the positive memory at first. A lot of it has to do with capacity. If you have been hurt a lot, then your parts are like, no, I'm not sharing with this person. I don't trust this person. So we got to develop trust too between me and the person I'm helping. And so I like Emmanuel because you go straight to Jesus. Like, he has the answers. I don't. It takes a lot of pressure off of me. I don't have to have the answers. I'm just kind of guiding you through and walking you through. Hey, you want to do this? Hey, would you like to talk to this part? Would you like to invite this part to come on in? Sometimes people will be like, yeah. And then if it gets scary, they're like, no, okay, the part ran away. Okay, all right, then we won't do that. It's very, very gentle. And speaking from my own experience, Jesus does amazing healing. Like, he just comes into those broken places, those parts that had those jobs to do. And he loves them and he shows them, man, you were great. Thank you so much. And we want to honor each of those parts that we have. We want to honor them. We want to say, hey, I love that you helped this person. I thank you so much. And then we, see what Jesus does. Or you can just go on an adventure. My focus is for more trauma people, but I do this for everybody. Anybody needs healing. Everybody needs healing. If you live on planet Earth, everybody needs healing. And so it doesn't have to be because you had some trauma. That's just where I focus if those people need it. That's my specialty, I would say, is with people that have gone through trauma, because I'm not afraid of it. Your story's not going to trigger me. And if it does, I'll go to Jesus too. And I'll go and do my own healing. And that's important if you're in this industry, is to have your own healing. You need to continually doing your own healing work, because you are carrying a lot for people, and then you just give it to Jesus. You don't have to carry the burden alone.
What genius to blend what we as humans have discovered about how God created the brain with the one who created the brain. Like, you're consulting
Yeah.
the author of the creation, and that is a powerful breakthrough, a powerful revelation.
My counselor taught me how to sit with my emotions. And that's what I want to help people do. That's what I come alongside and help women do. It's okay to feel however you're feeling. God gave us emotion. No, he does not want you freaking out, in a bar or whatever, in the middle of Walmart, screaming like a crazy person. No, that's not how he wants you to use your emotion. But he did give us emotion. Look at him. He wept in the Garden of Gethsemane. He wept. That's who he wants us to be. Real, relational, personal. And he meets you right where you're at. He knows your capacity.
Yeah, because we can't even connect with people when they're not real or authentic with us. And God,
Mm-hmm.
knowing everything there is to know about us, if we're not going to be honest about what we're struggling with, about what we've done, repentance, obedience, then what is he working with? Really nothing. He's working with avoidance and sidestepping and whatnot. And that's not a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. So it pays to just get real with God, because his heart, his whole heart is about healing and restoration. So it doesn't matter what
Mm-hmm.
you bring to him. He's like, babe, I got this. Let's get into the work here. I'll take it easy. We'll do step by step, but we're going to get into this and we're going to get healed in this area. And that's the beauty of having an intimate relationship with God. Somebody was asking, the person who doesn't believe in God, they're going to experience bad things. And then you have a person who believes in God, but the bad things don't stop happening to them either. And I was like, yes, but you have hope in the midst of deep pain and
Mm-hmm.
deep struggle. You have someone to rely on, to lean into, to cry with, to know you're not alone. That's huge to me. That's huge to me. I know we're talking about meshing or blending together the science of the brain and then God with us. But when you and I did this session, I did not pick up on any science. I felt just a genuine connection and conversation with God, with Jesus. We were inviting Jesus and we were talking to Jesus. Holy Spirit was downloading things.
Mhm.
So where is the science? Is it just that I'm recalling memories? Is that the brain part of it?
That's part of it. So that is why we start in a positive memory, because that gets your relational circuits I was talking about earlier on. And that helps because, like I said, your right brain doesn't keep any time frame. It doesn't have to keep track of time. You could have a memory from 5 years ago, and your right brain's not going to know that. So you go in and use a positive memory that you've already experienced, and that's called the safety net. And we do that. So that's the brain science of it. Your relational circuits have to be on. You have to be in a good place. That is your serotonin levels. It boosts your serotonin. It
It connects.
connects. Oh, it connects like all of it together. And it also depends on the person that I'm working with. Like, you have a lot of capacity. Somebody else might not, who has gone through stuff and not had any healing yet. They may not have capacity to connect with Jesus at all yet. And that's okay, because maybe Jesus, because as you know, a lot of people, and I did it, their father, earthly father, whoever that was, whatever they look like, that is what they attributed to the God. And that's what I did. I thought God was this ogre who was just waiting for me to mess up and waiting for me to make a mistake. And he had this big old, like, I don't know what you call it, the big old sledgehammer. And he was just waiting, like, for any opportunity that I did something wrong. And that's not him at all. So some of it's capacity as the brain science. The other part of it is your, like I said, relational circuits, and then connecting those. And then the biblical part is the prayer, is the let's meet with Jesus. What does he want to say? And then you just, like in your session, we just kind of took it wherever you wanted to go. Like, if you weren't comfortable, I was like, all right, cool, let's go this way. Like, that's my job, is to kind of navigate. And like, I'm the navigator. And Jesus is my navigator and tells me kind of where to go and what to do and that kind of thing.
Time is slipping away from us. So I'll share real quick a synopsis of our time together. I think we spent about an hour together, and
Mhm.
it seems so quick. I didn't keep track of time, but I think it was about an hour. But we started with that prayer. We invited Holy Spirit in. We began to talk to Jesus directly. There was no middleman. There was no interference from any other focus. That was our focus. We were talking to Jesus, and I felt Holy Spirit giving downloads of revelation during our conversation. It was very kind, if you will, because your tone, your cadence, your tenderness about the conversation, that sensitivity. So it really was easy to trust you in that environment. But I've also had other therapy that is similar to this, theophostic prayer, also emotion code. And so it wasn't a foreign concept to me to sit down and have you guide me through this interaction with Jesus. And so I relaxed because of your calm nature. And then it was just a gentle
Mhm.
conversation. You asked me for that good memory, and I brought up my 60th birthday where I had just my family and friends around. It was an intimate group of people, but that was just lit up my whole heart. But then we had a situation where I began to cry, and I was like, I don't really know why I'm crying. This was a beautiful memory.
Mhm.
So you asked me, do you want to ask Jesus what this is about, or do we want to skip past it? And I don't know if you use the word skip, but do you want to stay here for a moment? Do you want to ask Jesus why you are crying? And I said, yes, I want to ask him. So I asked him, and it turns out that my husband was not there. My listeners know that I unexpectedly lost my husband in early 2018. And so not having him there, I had spent every birthday with him from 19 to 53. I lost him when I was 53. We were just shy of our 32nd wedding anniversary. And so I hadn't had any major birthdays until the 60th birthday. And with him not there, and I didn't really feel sad at the party because I was busy talking and I was, meeting people, greeting people, talking to people. And so it was a very nice night. So again, that's why it kind of confused me that I would cry. But when the Lord revealed to me, Holy Spirit downloaded to me that it was my husband that was missing from this special evening. And so we asked the Lord, and the Lord said, "But I'm there." and that life changes, things change, but I'll never change. I am with you. And so I even had this vision of him walking through the party with me, holding my hand. And that brought peace, and comfort to me, even though I had tears about missing my husband during that time. And so for me, when I walked away after we wrapped up, and again, you just gently guided me through questions. You invited me to have conversation with the Lord. You invited me to ask questions. There was never any pressure to participate. Sometimes I didn't have an answer for you. I never felt like I had to have an answer. And that's different for me because of my background. When you feel like you have to have an answer, everything has to add up,
Mm-hmm.
everything has to be perfect. So I felt very relaxed through that. So the end result for me was just a peace, a deeper peace, a deeper peace about, yes, my husband is gone, but God is still with me. I'm not alone. Things are different. They're certainly
Mm-hmm.
not what I expected, but things are still beautiful. God still makes things beautiful. And so that was my experience.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you, any of my listeners, to reach out to Taleah to also experience that sort of beautiful conversation and interaction with the Holy Spirit and with Jesus. And one word I want to give anyone who's listening to: Satan does not want you to have this breakthrough. He wants you to sit in your trauma,
Mm-hmm.
sit in your fear, that this fear of what Talia is talking about when it doesn't want to participate. And it doesn't have to participate, but eventually, if you continue and the Lord gives comfort to this conversation, these things will come forward and then they'll break off of you. They'll be broken off. Freedom will replace these places of fear. I have found that when you face your fear, it diminishes quite considerably. It disappears, it dissolves when you invite Jesus to speak into these places. And so
Mm-hmm.
my question to you, Taleah, and I know I've thanked you, but thank you very much for your time, your energy, your patience, your honesty, because it has paid off big for me. But what's your biggest reward in being a trauma-informed coach with the Emmanuel Approach?
Approach. The biggest reward for me is getting to see people meet with Jesus, just having that interactive, tangible, living presence of Jesus, because not every Christian has that. They don't know how to do that. They don't know what it's like to really, they don't think they can. And so and then after that is the healing. Like that is not the reason for the Emmanuel prayer. It's the outcome. Like it's just a beautiful benefit. Because whenever you meet with Jesus, you're going to get freedom. And everybody needs some kind of freedom, no matter what that's like, because we live on planet Earth. But it's just beauty. And I just am so honored that I get this privilege to sit and with them in their stories. And I get to be there and be along with them in Jesus and introduce them maybe for the first time to real tangible living presence of Jesus. And he takes off theologies. He's changing some of my stuff. Like honestly, things I used to think, religion, I had a lot of religiosity. He has just thrown that out the window. And when I get to see people get free from religiosity and spiritual bypassing, I'm like, thank you, Jesus. And it just invigorates me. It's my passion. I am going to be starting a nonprofit so that I can help more women who can't afford this. I'm still in the learning stages. I'm going to be finding donors through the Lord's so that I can offer this for free. I'm going to be doing some group connections so that women can connect and they can learn how to do the Emmanuel lifestyle. And so, if anybody's interested, just the links will be in her podcast notes.
How exciting is that, that you are going to make this available to women who cannot potentially afford, or maybe they afford a smaller amount, but that's exciting. That's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that I have not asked you about that you want to include in this conversation? Your books, your podcast?
I am writing a book. It's hopefully going to be out in spring of 2025. We'll see what God does. And so I'm pretty excited about that. It is my story. It's going to have an encouraging section in there. And then also I'm hoping to put some educational things for victims of trauma and healing and stuff like that, just to help people have something in their hand that they can go through and flip through. Oh, this is my mindset right here. Oh, this is where I'm at. Here's what I need to do. Here's what I can do now until I can get some healing. I want to continue doing podcasts and then go speaking engagements at churches. And I'd like to do more Emmanuel mini healing sessions for people individually at churches and stuff because people need this. And then I also am going to be starting, so check out Healing Hearts Taleah Pletzer on Facebook. I will also be looking for a collective starter group that will let me be the first group to do this. I would like to do some groups of connecting, and we're learning how to listen to people, learning how to really connect with your heart and your mind together in a small group, no more than 6 people, but it is a commitment. So it will be a commitment to be there, to be in these groups, to get to know people. And it will be very small, it'll be very intimate. And we will check in and we will walk through how to check in, how to live the Emmanuel lifestyle, because it is a lifestyle. It's not just oh yeah, you do this and you just go. It'll change your entire life. And it's learning how to be present instead of that. You talked about it, I talked about it, being in survival mode. It's getting out of survival mode and experiencing really, really, when you go to the lake, your favorite ski trip, whatever it is, it's stopping for a minute, pausing. Where do you see the goodness of God wherever you are? His beauty and wonder is everywhere. Where are you seeing that? It's stopping, like enjoying your kids. I know you're in the trenches and it goes so fast. Enjoy it. Picking those moments of just cuddles on the couch, like just really sinking it in.
That sounds
Yeah.
beautiful. And so my last question for you is, if our listeners only remember one thing about this conversation, what do you want the takeaway to be for them today?
Healing is a journey and you're with the trip. God heals the brokenhearted and he is with the brokenhearted and contrite in spirit. And that is Psalm 34:18. So I want you to remember that. He's with you. You're not alone.
Taleah, thank you so much for your time today. I deeply appreciate it.
Thank you. It was my privilege.
Thank you for your time and for sharing this experience with my guest. I hope you have found encouragement for today and a deeper revelation of God's heart in the midst of pain and suffering. We'd love to have you as a subscriber to Finding God in Our Pain so that you can be connected with all my guests as they share their personal experiences and professional knowledge about pain and suffering. And because this podcast is a division of the website A Life of Thrive, for more information and the various ways you can connect with us, please visit the website alifeofthrive.com. I look forward to sharing more transparent stories from the hearts of women who intimately know what it means to have their world flipped upside down, their authentic struggle to make sense of it, and what recovery and healing looks like. Till then, sweet woman, remember you are not alone and that God speaks the most beautiful things in the dark.